Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the continuation of the #1 national bestseller. This is an audio reading of Don't Worry, Make Money by Richard Carlson. Chapter 32. Eliminate your most self-defeating belief. All of us have beliefs that get in our way. And for many of us, there is one in particular, some nagging, habitual tenet that we have come to accept as just the way things are. For me, it was my belief that I don't have enough time. Day after day, for most of my adult life, I would remind myself of this limiting concept. Sometimes I would tell myself this many times in a single day. What possible value could there be in telling yourself this or any self-created negative belief? Consider the subtle messages that go along with this idea. After all, if I believe that I don't have enough time, I must also believe that I'll never get something done on time. I'll be under constant pressure. There's no time to lose, as well as other related limiting ideas that directly interfere with my success and quality of life. Does this belief help me get things done? Of course not. Does it bring me joy? No. Any effect this belief has is strictly negative. What's your most self-defeating belief? Is it that you believe you aren't good enough or lucky enough? Maybe you believe you don't deserve success or that other people control your destiny. Perhaps you believe that people are out to get you or that you are a victim of circumstance. Whatever it is, it's not worth keeping, and it's certainly not worth defending. But each time you remind yourself by telling yourself of your limiting belief, you are reinforcing an idea that directly interferes with your own success. It puts a wall between where you are and where you want to be. Each time you say to yourself, I never get any breaks, or I can't help it, I've always been that way, or whatever negative message you are sending, it's as if you are saying to yourself, I don't want to succeed. Each time I slip into my old habit of telling myself that I don't have enough time, I keep in mind the damage I am inflicting on myself. I remind myself that there is zero value in this or any self-defeating belief. I suggest you do the same thing. You may be surprised, even shocked, at how often you repeat self-defeating statements to yourself and or to others. The good news is that you'll be pleasantly surprised at how easily you can rid yourself of their negative effects. Simply refuse to continue. Make a commitment to yourself to stop reinforcing this and all negative beliefs by discussing them or even thinking about them. As familiar negativity comes to mind, gently dismiss it as you would flies at a picnic. Don't give it your valuable attention. Save your energy for positive ideas and action. Once you get your most self-defeating ideas out of the way, you'll discover that abundance and joy will be right around the corner. Chapter 33. Keep in mind that circumstances don't make a person, they reveal him. It's extremely rare to find a successful person who whines, complains, and frets about her circumstances. This is despite the fact that she may have overcome great obstacles to achieve her level of success. On the other hand, it's extremely common for struggling individuals to continually blame their circumstances for their lack of joy and abundance. The real question is, what came first, the attitude or the success? The answer, in virtually all cases, is that the winning, positive attitude came first, followed by a lifetime of abundance. Your circumstances are what they are. They were what they were. If you are 45 years old and were a middle child, you're still going to be a middle child when you're 95. If you're black or white, a woman or a man, or if you were abused, taken advantage of, or bankrupt, these facts cannot change. They will not change. If your parents couldn't afford to send you to college, or if you had to work your way through school, shovel snow in your driveway, or walk 10 miles to school, these are all things in your past. It's time to get over them and move on. You'll find that life will be a lot easier and much more fun when you make the decision to drop your complaining. All it does is make you feel sorry for yourself, sad, angry, victimized, suspicious, and or self-righteous. When you argue for your limitations, your thoughts and words merely get in your way and greatly interfere with your ability to create. With complaining out of the way, you create the space for an explosion of creativity and brilliance. You'll be able to be more focused and oriented to the present moment. Instead of focusing on problems, you'll begin to see solutions. Instead of maintaining an I can't attitude, you'll quickly develop a more positive vision for yourself. All it takes is a simple decision. The decision to stop yourself from falling into the complaining habit. At first, it may be difficult, even funny, to observe how often you complain. Habits can be hard to break, but in this case, it's well worth the effort. As an excuse or complaint comes to mind, gently shoo it away like you would flies at a picnic. Don't worry about it too much. You'll quickly get used to the nicer feelings that come from a life without complaints, as well as the success that comes with your new winning attitude. Chapter 34. Form a winning partnership. As you probably already know, the wrong partnership, professional or personal, can be far worse than no partnership. And a winning partnership can be worth its weight in gold. Sometimes, however, fear can keep us from seeking out good partners and forming winning partnerships. Many people worry that they will have to share the profits, decision-making authority, and or prestige that come with the project or business. A fearful attitude, of course, won't allow us to do this. As always, it's a good idea to overcome this fear so that you will know whether forming a winning partnership is in your best interest. There are a few important points to consider when deciding if a partnership is right for you. If the members of a partnership do essentially the same thing, it's almost inevitable that one will be harder working and have more commitment than the other. Often, that partner begins to resent pulling the other partner along. Likewise, the partner being pulled resents the other partner's pushing. It's generally not a winning partnership. For example, two trial attorneys go into a legal partnership. At the end of the year, one or the other might wonder what benefit he received from the partnership. After all, each is fully capable of doing the other's job. But if a trial attorney and a corporate attorney go into partnership, usually each one at the end of the year says, "Thank God for my partner. I don't know what I would do without him." Ideally, each partner brings to the table different skills and attributes. One might be excellent at details and planning, the other in promotion and public speaking. Or one might be excellent in sales, the other in marketing. A good partnership is like a good marriage. It has to be formed carefully. If you can create the right combination of skills, work ethic, and vision, you can create a winning team. Here's a classic example of a winning partnership. Alan and George each had poor financial years the past few years. Alan is a superb real estate deal maker and has an artistic flair. Although he could negotiate to purchase building lots and negotiate to sell, he did not have any serious product or any true expertise in building custom homes. George is a superior tradesman and building contractor, but he had been working only about half time. He didn't have the foresight to locate great building sites or the courage to be a tough negotiator. They formed a partnership. Right from the start, their partnership was a match made in heaven. In their very first year of working together, they each had their most successful year ever. It's true that they had to split their profits, but their combination of skills quadrupled their ability to produce. The key is that the partnership does something that neither could do by themselves. Now, George is busy full-time building custom homes, the thing he does best. Alan is busy negotiating to purchase lots for future building, working on design, subcontracting, and negotiating material pricing. Although it sounds unbelievable, the partnership is able to complete a beautiful custom home start to finish in a matter of a few months. This is a winning partnership. You may be the most talented person on earth, but until you hook up with a good partner, you may never truly unleash that talent. Rather than spending your energy trying to do everything, you and your new partner can each focus on what she or he does best. Chapter 35. Let go of fearful thoughts. If you gathered up all the fearful thoughts that exist in the mind of the average person, look at them objectively and try to decide just how much good they provided that person, you would see that not some, but all fearful thoughts are useless. They do no good. Zero. They interfere with dreams, hopes, desires, and progress. Fearful thoughts take many different forms. Sometimes they sound reasonable. I'm just being careful, so I'm taking my time. Other times they're tied to your past. I've tried that before, and it didn't work. Occasionally, fears are cleverly disguised as being realistic. Most people fail, so I want to be absolutely sure before I get started. I could fill page after page with the other examples, yet when you take a close, honest look at every fearful thought, there are threads of similarity. All of them are explanations or rationalizations for why something shouldn't or can't work. They are usually justifications for quitting or for not getting started. To me, fearful thoughts are like a leash on an energetic dog. They hold you back, not some, but all of the time. A critic, especially a fearful one, will look at this advice and say it's unrealistic, simplistic, and or foolish. The problem with overcoming these objections is that on the surface they sound reasonable. Let me assure you that I'm not suggesting you ignore the facts and take unnecessary and or foolish risks. Nor am I suggesting that you should attempt things you are totally unqualified for. For example, if your dream is to play basketball in the NBA and you're 45 years old, overweight, and 5 feet 6 inches tall, forget it. You're not going to make it. What I'm talking about here are the fears that clearly and directly interfere with your dreams. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure, thoughts like, what will everyone think of me? I might look foolish, or I don't think I can do it. I don't have the time, or the experience, or the confidence, or the budget. These common, ongoing, fearful thoughts are the dream snatchers of our own making. For example, I know a person who was working as an independent salesperson. Her goal was to double her income. Her rational fear played itself out like this. I can't call people on the weekends because I might offend them or take away from their family time. The truth, of course, was that she was frightened to make the calls. So for years and years, she didn't make the calls, and she always fell far short of her goals. Then one day, she decided to simply drop her fear and pick up the phone. Because more of her clients were home and tended to be more relaxed on the weekends, she discovered that it was the best possible time to call. Once she dropped her fear, it was easy. Her income didn't double, it tripled. At the risk of being overly simplistic, let me suggest you try something that can change your life. Make a commitment that for the next month, you will practice dropping and or ignoring any negative and fearful thought that enters your mind. As fears come to your mind, gently but firmly let them go. As they return, which they will, let them go again. It's easier than you think. It just takes courage and a little practice. Do this again and again until they disappear completely. You'll discover that life is so much easier and more fun without the interference of fearful thoughts. Chapter 36, Think Big. The implications of thinking big are widespread and impressive. Thinking big is a magic door opener that broadens your perspective and allows you to see new opportunities. Thinking big makes life easier and a lot more fun. It also makes large profits more probable. I've been repeatedly reminded by successful business people in virtually every field that thinking big is one of the keys to success. Let's consider a few examples. Successful insurance salespersons insist that it takes the identical amount of time to speak to someone about $1 million policy as it does a $1,000 policy. In the real estate field, the concept of leverage applies whether you're considering a single family home or a huge apartment building. This doesn't mean that you can't make money in single-family homes or that your rate of return will necessarily be higher with more expensive properties. It merely suggests that the bigger your vision, the larger your potential for success. If you're trying to sell homes for a living as an agent, it takes the same amount of energy to ask a wealthy person for their listing as it does a low-end homeowner. You can think small or you can think big. In any field where public speaking is in order, this concept is critical. It takes an hour to speak to a single person and the same 60 minutes to speak to a crowd of 1,000 or more. The size of your crowd will be affected by the size of your vision. The concept of thinking big also applies to whom you choose to talk to. Are you frightened to go to the top? If so, you're missing out. It's very often the case that the people highest up the ladder are actually the easiest to speak to and the most willing to help. I've had the owners of car dealerships actually sit in the car and give me a test drive at the same dealership where the salesperson on the floor wouldn't give me the time of day. But in order to make that happen, I had to ask. In the corporate world, the boss is often more than willing to sit down with you, even when middle-level managers treat you with disrespect. It's a strange dynamic, but it's often true. As usual, the primary reason many people think too small is fear. Thoughts like, I can't speak to a room full of people. I can't risk taking on a larger project. And I couldn't ask the boss to have lunch with me. Fill the mind and are taken too seriously. When fearful thoughts enter the mind, try to banish them. You can do it once you believe you can. The fear you are experiencing is almost always self-created and usually unnecessary. I have a friend who spent most of his adult life insisting he couldn't write a book. This was very puzzling to me because not only was he an excellent writer, but he also felt quite comfortable writing articles and chapters. One day, I asked him to consider the idea that a book is nothing more than a series of interesting chapters put in a sequence. As obvious as this was to me, he had never thought of it in those terms. Instead, he had always focused on his stubborn belief that writing a book was too big a project. This simple shift in his thinking made all the difference. 2 years later, he finished his first book. Take a look at your own vision for abundance. Is your vision too small? Could you be thinking in larger terms? In most cases, the answer is yes. There may be ways that you can reach more people with the same amount of effort. Regardless of the business you are in, the first step is to eliminate any fear or worry that is getting in your way. As your worrisome thoughts gradually disappear and become less appealing, new ideas and insights will begin to emerge. An acquaintance of mine operates a coffee house. For years, she did everything herself. She didn't hire a staff because she was concerned that she couldn't afford to expand. The problem was, because she had to do everything herself, her service was rather slow. It hadn't occurred to her that she was losing a great deal of business because of her growing reputation for being slow. She knew that something was wrong and that people waiting for their morning coffee didn't want to stand in long lines. One day, she asked herself, if I wasn't fearful, what would I do? The answer was obvious. I'd hire a few kids to speed up my service. To her absolute delight, this was the answer to her dreams. Her lines speeded up and her profits soared. As is usually the case, there was really nothing to fear. It was all in her mind. Don't worry, make money. Chapter 37. Make decisions with the advantage of long-term information instead of the disadvantage of short-term information. Oh, how tempting it can be to reverse this bit of wisdom and act on impulse. For example, if you looked at only 1996 when the Dow Jones average grew at a 26% rate, based on that short-term bit of information, you might be tempted to sell everything you own and invest in nothing other than the stock market. If so, you could always have the experience of a major downward correction over the short term. Or, if you looked at the rates of return that investors were enjoying in the California residential real estate market in the mid-1980s, you may have been tempted to do the same with single-family homes. If you did so, however, and stayed in the game too long, you would have been brought back to earth, perhaps even made homeless by the end of the decade. You can see that acting on impulse or on short-term information alone can be a big mistake. Instead, make the bulk of your decisions with the advantage of long-term information instead of the disadvantage of short-term information. This wiser way of approaching your decisions gives you a far more realistic outlook. It also takes most of the worry out of investing and business decisions. For example, if you take any 20-year period of time, excluding the disaster of the 1930s, such as the last 20 years, the rate of return in the market was somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15%. Depending on what particular index or group of stocks you selected, you can be fairly certain that within reason, this trend will continue. Chapter 38. Know when to bet, know when to hold, and when to fold. Many people fail to recognize just how important timing really is. Not just the type of timing we usually think of, catching the stock market or a real estate cycle at precisely the right time, but rather the ongoing inner calculations of knowing when to bet, when to stay put, and when to fold or give something up entirely. Often, the worst, or at least the most unnecessary, thing you can do in a money-making venture is to take a significant risk at the wrong time, or on the other end of the risk-taking spectrum, to be overly conservative when it's absolutely appropriate to expand. When the wind seems to be at your back, when a certain degree of risk is in order. There are times when the best possible course of action is to do nothing other than hold on. Do essentially nothing. Be patient. Other times, of course, it's important or at least appropriate to expand, to grow, to move forward. Occasionally, you're in the zone. Everything you touch, every decision you make seems to turn to gold or take you in a positive direction. Other times, we can save ourselves a fortune or a great deal of energy by simply being willing to take a loss now, to fold, rather than lose everything later. It's amazing how often problems can be overcome and new opportunities can be realized by simply quieting down the inner chatter of our analytical thinking so that we'll know what action, if any, to take. This quieting of the mind allows us to get out of our own way so that we can know how to put the odds in our favor. Wisdom is knowing when to do what. It's about being flexible and being willing to change, to flow. And while this may sound obvious, many people make the wrong choices simply because their mind is too busy. Thus, they fall into bad habits and are unwilling to consider new ways of thinking. I've always done it that way. Or I can close down this office. We've been here for 2 generations. My suggestion here is to simply quiet down enough to consider the facts. Sometimes a non-returned phone call can cost you a career, a big deal, or a great deal of money. Other times, it's absolutely appropriate to avoid returning a phone call. It can actually be a good idea. The trick is to act from a place of wisdom rather than simply reacting out of habit. Chapter 39. Change what you can, accept the things you can't. This strategy is adopted from the Serenity Prayer that says, in its entirety, Lord, grant me the strength to change the things I can, the serenity to accept the things I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. What an incredibly powerful message. Can you imagine how smoothly your life would run if you could implement this strategy most of the time? In every business, there are things we must deal with. There are things we can change that we have some power to control. There are other things that are absolutely beyond our control. Yet, how often do we spend our time and energy doing absolutely nothing about the things we do have some control over, while whining and complaining about those things we can't do anything about? Often, because we have our priorities twisted in the wrong direction, we end up chasing our tails and wasting time. Once we change gears, put these factors into proper perspective, and focus only on those things that we have some capacity to control, it's easy to get back on track. A friend of mine recently retired from an extremely successful career in the real estate syndication business. He insists that many of his competitors failed, in part because of their lack of acceptance of the way things really are. Instead of focusing on what they could and should have been doing, many people spent their time complaining about bureaucracy and trying to get around the rules and regulations. In his words, dealing with bureaucracy is a part of the business. The Securities and Exchange Commission and other government agencies are just part of the game. If you moan, bitch, and complain, you're sunk. Similarly, builders must deal with permits, government agencies, and environmental and safety factors. Farmers must deal with weather conditions and other factors beyond their control. Corporate people must deal with ridiculous memos, interminable meetings, and bad bosses. Inevitable, the most successful people in any field are those who dance with the what is part of business instead of struggling against it. Those who fail are often the ones who struggle against the inevitable. It's tempting to focus on aspects of life that are beyond our control. How often do you hear people complaining about taxes, while no one, myself included, likes to pay taxes, and certainly no one should pay any more than he or she is legally required to pay? There is a great deal of wisdom in spending your time creating abundance rather than complaining about taxes. Go ahead and lobby for lower taxes if you must. Voice your opinion if you choose to do so. But once you have done what you can do, let go of it. Know when to quit. Expend your energy doing what you can do. Focus on creation, creativity, positive ideas, and solutions. Come up with a new idea, a useful product or service, or a new or improved way of doing something. Improve your existing business, formulate a new relationship, make a phone call you've been avoiding, stop complaining about taxes. Focus instead on making so much money that taxes will seem irrelevant. Do something positive, something you have control over. Once you start thinking in these terms, you'll be amazed at how easy and enjoyable it is to create the abundance you desire and deserve. Chapter 40. Develop relationships with people before you need something from them. So many of us wait until we desperately need something from someone before we take the time to get to know them. In truth, this is probably the absolute worst time to do so. If you need something from someone and they know it, they may be on guard, even defensive, trying to determine if you're sincere. The truth is, people are so much more pleasant when you don't need anything from them. How many people have taken the time to actually sit down or have coffee with the manager at their bank before ever needing a loan? As a percentage, virtually no one does this. Yet how much easier it is to work with people when they already know and trust you, when you know the names of their spouse and children, when they know that you care about their happiness and that you are a sincere, trusting person. I make it a point to get to know as many people as possible in my own community. I'm friendly with the banker, the owners of the restaurants and coffee shops, the local mechanic, the pharmacist, the florist, and so many others. The result is that if I need a loan, my banker knows my face and my name. He trusts me. If I wanted one, he'd probably give me a loan over the phone. If one of my children is sick, the local pharmacist will gladly take the time to discuss the issue with me. He's genuinely concerned about my family as I am about his. If I want to send someone flowers, I can call the florist and say, "Can you make this order extra special?" In every case, she'll go out of her way to please me because she knows I care about her. If I have friends in town and want a great seat at the restaurant, my waiter friend at the diner is more than willing to save me a great table. This has nothing to do with taking advantage of people. It's just the way life works. People love to help those they know and trust. Each of these people and so many others know that I'll do and have done special things for them as well. In fact, I wouldn't think twice about it. Although people will do so, no one really wants to get to know you, to be the recipient of your kindness only during those occasions when you need something from them. It can seem disingenuous, as if you're only being nice because you want something. Of course, it's better that you're friendly now than never, but how much nicer it is if the people you need already know that you're a nice, genuine person. Why not show people how wonderful you are right now? Obviously, there are some instances when you will need to meet someone under less than optimal circumstances, and you will need something from them. For example, if your car breaks down, you probably won't know the tow truck driver. In these instances, make the best of it and leave a great impression. But whenever possible, try to meet and enjoy people before you need them. You'll be shocked at how helpful they can be. Chapter 41, be aware of your unique stacking order. The idea of a stacking order was introduced to me by a successful computer consultant. What a gift it has turned out to be. Essentially, the concept exists to help you clarify in your own mind how much work or how many projects you are comfortable working on at any given time. Over and over again, I've seen incredibly competent people failing simply because they or their employer haven't taken this concept into serious consideration. Everyone is different. We each have different strengths and weaknesses. But beyond this, we have very unique temperaments regarding an optimal pace to work. How much we can handle, how much is on our plate, or how many projects we can manage at any given time. An area where many people can relate to this concept is in their personal reading habits. Some people love to read one book at a time. They enjoy each page and won't even think of picking up another until they're completely finished. Other people are just the opposite. They love to have 5 or 6 books going at once. They will read a chapter or two in one book, put it down, and perhaps not pick it up again for several weeks. If you force people to ignore their reading preference, or i.e. stacking order, you would take them out of their natural rhythm and ruin their experience of reading. Their comprehension would decrease and their enjoyment level would diminish. Our work life is very similar, although most people never even consider it to be a factor. Instead, most of us operate as if everyone should work at the same pace and as if we should or have to work at someone else's level of activity. My own preferred stacking order is 3 to 4 projects at once. This means that I'm most comfortable working on a book, perhaps promoting another one, writing an article, and giving a few lectures a month. If I'm only working on one project, it's simply not enough to keep me engaged. I lose focus, I get a little bored and impatient, and the project doesn't turn out as well as I would like. I love to work a few hours on one project, then shift gears altogether. This may not be the right way to do it, but it's my way. Many people think I'm nuts. I've heard so many people say over the years, how can you produce so many projects? The reason it seems nuts to someone else is that their stacking order is different. If I attempted to do it their way, I'd go nuts. Other people love to work on only one project at a time. They focus beautifully on whatever they are working on until they're completely finished. Then, and only then, will they pick up something else. If these people have too many things going at once, they fall apart and look incompetent. It's a shame because a vast majority of these people are far from incompetent. In fact, in many instances, if these folks were to do nothing other than shift the number of things they focused on at once, they would begin to look like a genius. Obviously, there are times when you simply can't work at your preferred pace. You may prefer to work on one project at a time, but be forced by circumstance to work on 6 or 7. Yet, even in these cases, understanding your stacking order can be enormously helpful. You can organize your work in such a way that you can maximize your potential. You can create artificial time zones for each of them. For example, you can work on one project for 30 minutes without thinking about anything else whatsoever. Then, after a 5-minute break, begin work on project number 2. Rather than jumping back and forth, stay focused on one thing at a time. I hope you will seriously consider your own stacking order. If you do, you'll discover a pace that's just right for your own temperament. This will make the creation of abundance a much richer experience in every sense of the word. Chapter 42. Don't panic. Just as Chicken Little was dead wrong when she said the sky was falling, it's important to keep your perspective even when it feels like she was right. Remember, when something is falling, it rarely keeps falling. There are cycles in life. An excellent example of where huge profits have been realized has been the California real estate market. In my lifetime, the cycle has gone way up and way down many times. Yet the one consistency in the fluctuations has been the tendency for many people to freak out and panic when times are bad, to assume the downturn is going to last forever, that things can only get worse. In retrospect, we can see that often the best time to get in is when everyone else is panicking. In business, people panic about practically everything. Missed deadlines, orders not received, comments by others, fear of mistakes, negative trends. You name it and someone is panicked about it. Yet, I've never seen even a single instance where the panic actually helped to solve the problem. Instead, panic is neutral at best and greatly interferes at worst. Panic tends to bring out the worst in everyone. It makes others and you feel tense and fearful. It increases the likelihood of mistakes, missed opportunities, and miscommunication. Nothing interferes with the creation of success and abundance like panic. When you make the commitment to stop panicking, you'll notice some incredible things happening. First, you'll notice that a vast majority of what you are most worried about will never happen, or it won't be as bad as your first thought. It was Benjamin Franklin who said, "Some terrible things happened in my life," a few of which actually happened. By avoiding the panic, you won't waste time, anxiety, and energy trying to solve what probably doesn't need solving. Second, when you learn to keep your bearings, your wisdom will come forth. In the absence of worry, answers will emerge. Instead of a head full of concerns, you create a head full of solutions. Finally, when you stay calm, you really do bring out the best in others. Many people react to the feelings of others. If you can maintain your bearings, chances are the people you work with will too. Life is far too short to worry it away. To bring forth your greatest potential, eliminate panic altogether from your thinking. This will put you on a path toward abundance. Chapter 43. Create from the inside. You can work long and hard, be creative, clever, talented, insightful, even lucky. But if you fail to understand the importance of your own thoughts in the process of creation, it will all be for naught. The single most important factor of success, abundance, and the creation of prosperity comes from within yourself, your thoughts. As James Allen reminds us in As a Man Thinketh, a particular train of thought persisted in, be it good or bad, cannot fail to produce its results on the character and circumstances. A man cannot directly choose his circumstances, but he can choose his thoughts, and so indirectly, yet surely, shape his circumstances. If you could look into the minds of successful men and women, you would discover a wealth of positive energy, thoughts of success and abundance, and a complete lack of doubt. In order to create external prosperity, you must first create thoughts of prosperity. You must see yourself as successful, play out your dreams and ambitions in your mind successfully. It's tempting to convince yourself that you would become more positive and that your thoughts would become purer and more success-oriented after a measure of success. However, this is clearly putting the cart before the horse. The quickest, surest way to riches is from the inside out. Thoughts have tremendous power. Use your imagination to create your dreams, and great changes will quickly follow suit. Once again, James Allen. Let a man radically alter his thoughts, and he will be astonished at the rapid transformation it will effect in the material conditions of his life. I've known many successful people in many different fields, although they have vastly different talents, temperaments, skills, work ethics, and backgrounds. They all have one thing in common. This golden thread of consistency is that each of them sees himself or herself as successful. They never question this fact. They can't understand why anyone would question their own level of greatness. It's hard for them to understand why everyone isn't successful, because to them the formula is quite simple. Success originates in the mind and translates into the material world. It doesn't work the other way around, as so many seem to believe. Successful people know that the one aspect of life that they do have control over is their own thinking. All of us have this same advantage, so let's all start there. Chapter 44. Banish your doubt. In your dreams, you're able to do some remarkable things. Be two places at once, shift scenes and environments, walk through walls, become rich and famous, overcome great obstacles, get along with your parents, become the CEO, create great abundance, write a bestseller, speak to 1 million people, to name just a few. And through it all, you never, ever doubt your abilities. In fact, can you imagine how ridiculous it would be to question your abilities while dreaming? Can you imagine saying, wait a minute, I can't do that? And in your dreams, how often do you fail? Rarely. But if you do, it's always for a specific purpose, to learn something, to test your strength, to overcome great odds, to take you to the next level of growth. Because you don't doubt yourself, all things are possible. Yet, in our waking state, most of us spend a great deal of energy every day of our lives doubting our abilities. to our great detriment. We doubt ourselves at practically every turn. We doubt our abilities to write well, speak to a group, come up with a new idea or solution, overcome an obstacle, create a better mousetrap, market a product or service, or negotiate with a difficult person. We question our self-worth, how much we deserve to be paid, or how valuable or talented we are to an organization or as an entrepreneur. We doubt our ability to overcome rejection, start over, or confront a challenge. A surefire strategy for success is to banish doubt from your life. All of it. This doesn't mean you should start doing foolish things or making childish decisions. It means you should start trusting in yourself, creating an inner knowing and awareness that you have everything it takes to be an absolute winner, to make your dreams come true. The only true obstacle lies within the doubt itself, and all doubt lies within your own thoughts. For years, I convinced myself that I couldn't speak in front of groups. I believed this self-imposed limitation with all my heart. I even had concrete evidence that my belief was true. As I mentioned earlier, twice I fainted while trying to speak. Then one day, a friend and mentor put me on the spot in front of a large group. Before it was my turn to speak, he turned to me and said, "Richard, the idea that you aren't capable of speaking to a group is absolutely preposterous. Dismiss this crazy notion from your mind and everything will be fine. Get over it now." I remember his words as if they were said this morning. He was right. Speaking became effortless the moment I banished the doubt from my mind. You can do the same thing. It's silly to hold on to any doubt in your life. It does no good. All doubt is a waste of energy and interferes with your natural ability to create the abundance and wealth that is your birthright. Whatever doubts are lingering in your mind, let them go. Let them go. It's far easier than you think and will produce great rewards. Chapter 45. Know the secret of silence. There is a tendency in business and in life to want to actively engage ourselves in the process of creation. We want to know the answers. We want to figure out what to do next. We want to think our way to success. However, in many instances, I believe in most instances, the best answers come not from programmed, memory-based thinking, but from the silence within. In fact, I've watched many people, and I've done it too, think their way out of success by overanalyzing a situation. Have you ever noticed that when you are quiet and still, calm and silent, you know exactly what to do? Being silent doesn't shut down your mind. It only activates a deeper type of intelligence. No one knows for sure where this deeper intelligence comes from or what it's called. But all wise cultures are certain that it exists. When we are silent, it's as if we tap into a universal source of wisdom. It's as though our thinking comes to us rather than us having to actively pursue our thoughts. It's as if we get the benefit of universal thought instead of having to rely on our own limited thinking. Learning to trust in silence is simple because when you do, the results are so spectacular. Once you get the hang of it, Your life will become far easier and less stressful. Success will sneak up on you. The next time you need an answer that is not readily available, rather than racking your brain over it, try an experiment. Instead of actively thinking about the issue, let it go. The fact that you know the nature of the problem or question is all the information you need. Allow the question to settle like salt in water. When you do this, something magical begins to happen within your consciousness. Something beyond you, a dimension of thought over which you have no control, flips on. And like the back burner of a stove, the question or problem begins to bubble. In time, it may be a few minutes, hours, or days, depending on the issue, an answer will pop into your head. There will be no struggle and no effort. It will just happen. You may be surprised, but you will certainly be delighted at the wisdom that comes through. Be careful, however, to not take yourself too seriously. The wisdom you experience comes not from you, but from the silence. I guess I'm letting the secret out of the bag. Thank you guys for joining me for this continuation of the book Don't Worry, Make Money by Richard Carlson, a spiritual and practical way to create abundance and more fun in your life. Chapters 32 through 45. I'm your jack of all trades, and until next time, get money, people.